I think it's really exciting, and the Super League, the standards are just ramping up. And I think with the World Cup coming towards the back end of the year, all the players are just really stepping it up a gear. And I think you've got international players across them three teams predominantly. So all of the clashes with kind of York, Saints and us are going to be unbelievable for the game. And I think it's really promoting how far we've come in Super League. Definitely.
Well, Sam, a big thank you for joining us. And before we get to this weekend's big game, obviously we're early on into the Super League season, but thanks to the Challenge Cup, we've had a bag full of games already. So how's the season gone thus far?
I think it's gone really well. We've set out what we intended, other than obviously to win the final. But I think the way we performed in the first half of the final was kind of exactly everything that we've been working towards. So we're really looking forward to getting stuck into the league and hopefully maintaining that sort of standard of performance.
I was going to ask you about that final because it came on the back of the semi-final against York, which there wasn't much separating you. And you could argue for large portions of the final, there wasn't too much separating yourselves and St Helens. So what does that tell us about how close Super League is going to be this year, do you feel?
I think it's really exciting, and the Super League, the standards are just ramping up. And I think with the World Cup coming towards the back end of the year, all the players are just really stepping it up a gear. And I think you've got international players across them three teams predominantly. So all of the clashes with kind of York, Saints and us are going to be unbelievable for the game. And I think it's really promoting how far we've come in Super League. Definitely.
And for you personally as well, last season, I think we could call that a breakout year for yourself. But already, you've equalled the amount of tries you scored last season this year. So how are you finding your own performances thus far?
I've had a funny time in the women's team. I think I've played most positions. I had some quite large stints at hooker, which was a position that was brand new to me. I only started playing that last year. And I think to come into such a key position for the first time in the Super League, it was pretty difficult and it was challenging, but I really enjoyed it. And I think it's given me a massive insight to who I am as a player in the game. But to be honest, at Leeds, I'm just here to play, and I want to do anything I can for the team. And at the minute, that's playing on the wing, and I'm really enjoying my time there. And it's a position that I've never really played either, but I'm really enjoying it. And it's nice to get a few tries off the back of some of the great player or halfbacks put on. So it is nice to get on the scoreboard as well. But at the end of the day, it's just doing a job for the team and wherever that may be. Hopefully just never a prop.
And speaking of that team though, obviously as a younger member of the squad, but there's a few young players in that squad, isn't there? I mean, it must be exciting being part of this wave of talent coming through at the Leeds Rhinos.
Yeah. I think because I'm quite new into it and I'm only into my second season of Super League, I probably come across as like one of the younger players. But being 22, I'm actually one of the slightly older ones and kind of middle of the pack. But yeah, we've got like some ridiculously good talent in some of the younger players. So it's going to be really exciting to see how that looks in a few years' time. We've got like some of our best players or some of our youngest players are also all in the Super League. Like when you look at the likes of Fran, Kira, it's just crazy how young they are and how successful they're being, not just on the Super League and national level, but also at an international level. It's crazy. They're unbelievably talented. I think in sort of 3 years' time, like I can't even imagine how good they're going to be, especially playing at the level we are now, week in, week out.
And with regards to, obviously the setup at Leeds Rhinos is superb. You don't have to look behind you to see that. St Helens is great. York City Knights, it's part of a double header this weekend. Curtain raiser for the men's game against the London Broncos. So, I mean, it's quite. It's not just the Leeds Rhinos. It's also Super League more general, isn't it? I mean, what a sport to be part of. Yeah.
Well, we've seen what's been going on in York. Like they've decided to invest loads of money in the women, and like that's unreal to see. Like it's lovely to see that it's not just us that are getting that. Like we are part of the men's section. We train out of we get all the facilities that the men get. We get all of the benefits that they get. And I think other than the obvious, which is the lack of sort of salary or anything attached to the women's game, we are getting treated like professional athletes here. And it's nice to see that Saints and York are both getting that same treatment. You've seen how York have come on over the last year or so from where they were back at the beginning of last season. All that took was a little bit of belief from their club and a bit of investment, and you can see the difference it's made. But yeah, it's really good to see that it's not just, it's becoming more of a standard across the Women's Super League, that actually you are treated the same as the men's club and you are actually a part of something bigger.
And with regards to, you've already mentioned it already about York City Knights having an England contingent, Leeds having one, St Helens having one. There is a World Cup at the end of this. And like we said about your own performances, looking forward to that challenge of breaking into that squad as well.
Yeah, I think I'm just concentrating on what I'm doing here and what I'm doing now. It's not something that everybody wants to play internationally. And anyone who tells you they don't is probably lying. But I think what I'm focusing on doing is becoming an integral part of this team and doing the best job I can for my teammates around me right now. I think if in years to come that puts me at that standard, I'll be over the moon. But for now, I'm just concentrating on smashing it here as best I can.
And that takes us then to this weekend's match against the York City Knights. As we touched upon, the semi-final, so close between the pair of you.
Yeah.
It seems very early on in the season to be talking about, you know, a 4-pointer, a must-win game and all this, but it's going to be such a cracking advert for the Women's Super League, this one. I mean, what's your thoughts on the actual challenge this weekend?
I think we all know the challenges that's ahead of us. It's exciting. It is really exciting that so early on in the season, like, these kind of challenges are going to be put in front of us. And like you said, we've already played against them in a really close game. I personally was injured that game, so I didn't play that game, and I was on the sideline and I was on the edge of my seat. And I think that's the kind of performances and the kind of games that we want to be putting out there as an advert for Women's Super League. And so, like, I watched the game against St Helens in York, and as somebody who wasn't a fan of Women's Rugby League, if you'd put that game on, I would be very surprised if you turned it off, just because it was so competitive. And they're the games that we want to be a part of, and they're the games we want to play this weekend. Of course, it's going to be a challenge. We're not focused on them. We're not bothered about how they played against Saints. Like, we're focused on us, and we're just hoping it'll be a really competitive game. That'll be a great advert for Women's Super League.